All right, we're right back here on the Silver Street Spoilercast. If you do not want spoilers, you should stop this right now and go listen to something else. Okay, so we've got some questions here. So we talked about it a little bit in the opening, but who do you think is the protagonist of this book?
For me, it's Lanto. We see this the most through Lanto's eyes. The way he frames the world, he's the only one who gets like a foil. It's Lanto.
Yeah, I would agree. I do really feel like Violet's main function was, mainly as a foil for Lanto, to really highlight some things about Lanto's experience and to highlight just how unnerving and scary it would be to be investigating these murders in this area, right? Because that does not come across from Lanto's POV, and it couldn't really if he was writing Lanto, truly.
Yeah.
And the only thing it gave me maybe a little pause at the end because it's Violet who ends up, firing the winning gunshots at the very end.
I liked that. It was redeeming for Violet,
Totally. Yeah. I feel like Violet is sort of like, he's there for a little bit of comic relief, and like I found some of his parts pretty amusing. And then for him to get that, I agree, because you kind of felt bad for him all the way through. You're like, man, like, this is rough for this guy, like he's not made for this. He seems like, to use the language of the time of this book, he seems like kind of a candy ass, so to speak, and then he ends up doing that. And so, I love that as just like entertaining. I thought that was cool. But I definitely think it's Lanto. I think Lanto in the end doesn't get a lot of satisfaction from having solved this, because I think he knows that realistically, like, the larger forces at play are not solved. They're still going. This was just one person,
And I love that. That was a great, I don't know. I like an ending that doesn't leave you entirely satisfied.
Yeah.
It sticks in your mind more. You're mulling it over, and I feel like it's very characteristic of the genre too.
100%. I love it that it's like that. And when I made that Wire comparison, I feel like, the finale of The Wire to me is a really great episode of television. Partly
no spoilers.
Oh, right. Okay.
I haven't seen all the seasons yet.
Well, I'll just say, similarly to this, you don't suddenly feel like anything major has been solved.
If I felt that way, it wouldn't be The Wire.
Right.
I could. Yeah. Yeah.
And there are 5 Lanto novels, but the way it seems to me is like Johnson is literally like imprisoned for murder, trying to get anyone to take this first book. Like, I don't think he necessarily, it's not like he had a contract to write these 5 novels, right? Like, I think he wrote this. I think it's supposed to end this way. And I think it fits with Lanto's character, right? Like, he is trapped in some of these like larger conflicts within himself. And, for Violet, just getting a little bit of redemption there, that was great for his arc. But I agree. Lanto's the protagonist for sure. And, whether or not he actually solved that case, that was just like part of the job.
Now, something that bothered me at the end was how things ended with Anna. How did you feel about that? Do you think Lanto would have accepted Anna if she had told him first? Or was his mind made up about sex workers?
It's a really interesting question. Here's what I'll say. Before it happened, when I was expecting that she was going to tell him, I was expecting that he was going to be okay with it. And that's, he seemed so smitten with her, and it seemed like this was his escape, right? Like, he seemed like he felt, trapped in this whole cycle of like, I don't really feel like I belong at work. I don't really feel like I belong in my community. But like, he kept coming back to, but we can be together. And I'm really into that. And that's really exciting. I think it would have been hard for him especially to like be in bed with her or wherever they were going to be and be like, no, sorry, this is not okay with me,
Yeah, no, I did not like his rejection of her. I think I felt a bit, maybe even more strongly than that. Maybe it's a product of the time this was written. Mm-hmm. But to me, being in 2026, it felt hypocritical. He came up in Silver Street. He has intimate knowledge of these women's situation. He understands them. He knows of them as people. He's perfectly comfortable even helping Trixie find a regular job at that cafe. He treats them with respect, but there's a line there that he cannot except that his own girlfriend is in the trades, won't even hear her out. And it's a toxic masculinity thing. That's how it felt to me. And I can forgive the novel for that because it's of the time. But for me, I just like, I don't think I would care about this.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I think I agree with you in that partly I do think it's about the novel, right? Like if I think about people who were our age in the 60s reading this, yeah, I think the idea that they would marry a sex worker would be very different, right? Whereas
Yes.
different thoughts now, and again, like you said, especially given that Lanto really understands that, like, these are people who are just going for their best option in the immediate, right? The one thing I'll say is, and I think this is part of why I like the writing so much. We know that she was really taken with him, right? Like we know
Yeah.
that she really loved him. She wanted to marry him. She kept saying that she was picturing having Dago children.
Yeah.
um, and we know that she really wanted to tell him, and she was just trying to wait for the right time, but that she fully intended to. He doesn't know that, right? And so
Right.
I think, he's in this job where people are always talking out of different sides of their mouth. You can't fully trust anyone. And so I just feel like then when something like that comes across and you're like, wow, like I've been sharing all this intimacy with this person and now I'm finding this out, I feel like that is maybe the thing that he couldn't get over.
That's a good point. We're
Yeah.
seeing this from both sides. We have both perspectives. But if we didn't know how Anna felt, if we're only seeing his side of it, I think we as the readers might feel differently too. And I can see how that betrayal can really sting, especially in such an environment where you're not used to trusting anybody, and the one person you're starting to trust turns out they kept a secret from you. I
Right.
can understand that.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
almost see it as a self-protection thing. And again, we know that that was real, but to hear I was going to tell you once she knows, I don't know. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's tricky, but it's too bad. I was really rooting for them.
Me too.
I was really rooting for them, and also a little voice in the back of my mind was like, but that this is not that kind of book. So,
Yeah.
so along those lines, I think we can both agree, given that we got in Cecil's POV, that he's a creep, and there's a lot going on there beyond just like being vengeful or whatever, right? This was a deranged individual for sure.
Oh, yeah.
If we didn't have that POV, do you think we might view him differently? Given that he's killing for the most part these pimps who are really, mistreating these women.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have that POV, we wouldn't see him as human at all. He would seem just like this force of death. Because of that POV, we actually, for me, that really humanized him in a way. I mean, I don't agree with what he did or his logic, but you see him as a person who's struggling with something, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you still see the thinking, and you can see him as a person. I think that's what I love about this book, because the people who commit these crimes are people, and they are thinking. There's something in their head. They are human beings, and it's important not to forget that. I think the fact that these people are human, people who commit these awful crimes, even pimps too, not just serial killers, like all of these people are human, and that makes it scarier in some ways to be. You got to be comfortable with that humans can commit these crimes. You can't other those crimes to
yeah.
some other, some third force. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you're totally right that it would just be seen as this force of death. I don't think we would be championing him, right? Like I'm struggling to put a finger on it right now, but I can totally see shows that I've watched in the past or movies where someone who was taking out bad guys, so to speak, might be celebrated like a vigilante justice sort of thing. But I don't think Lanto would view it that way. So I think even if we were just in Lanto's perspective, he would still see this as someone who was doing bad stuff, as something that it was his job to solve. Like these pimps a lot of the thoughts they have about the women are disgusting and horrible, right? And a lot of the actions they take towards the women are disgusting and horrible. So I'm not I mean, to your point, one, it's like, it does add to the sort of the fear of it is that humans think this way and act this way. But like you said, it's also like being frustrated about being out in the rain for your job and having to meet this guy, right? Like being frustrated about the fact that you are trying to run this bar and at the same, it's like they've got also the same kind of work concerns and annoyances that we would have. And the women in the book did talk about the fact that it was much safer for them to have somebody arranging these meetups with the tricks, which is the term for the men who were buying the sex from them, having that fear of like, okay, if they step out of line too much, then like they're going to have to answer to this person. That did make them safer. And so in a lot of ways they are serving their function in this whole messed up system and clearly causing fear, right? Anytime there's a murder on the loose like that just causes fear in the whole area. So I think Lanto would still be doing his job. And like you said, if anything, it would just make Cecil less interesting because it would just be like, oh, this is the sort of faceless thing that we're trying to stop.
Yeah, this did get me thinking about the economics of this.
Yeah.
And how, like, you're right, it's an ecosystem, and ultimately you get someone in here who's completely disrupting the ecosystem. And in a lot of ways, I think this book is just very amoral.
Yes.
And morality aside, they serve a function, and without them, it's a much more dangerous world for the women and much harder for them to earn their income. Yeah.
Questions. I was thinking about this for the review in the, but I realized it's kind of a spoiler, so I'm just going to slide in one quick question here.
How dare you?
How did you feel about the way Anna or Anna was written?
Yeah, that's something I've been mulling over.
Yeah.
I do think that the men were much better written than the women.
Yep.
The women had much, and some, I mean, you got in their head, you saw what their motivations were, but like Anna was, one of the first things you learn about her, she has an incurable case of hot pants.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that phrase. It's a great phrase, but it feels a little lazy to say, oh yeah, the prostitute's an nymphomaniac, and she just, she's in this because she loves it. So yeah, I didn't like that. I felt like, and maybe part of it's the product of the time this was written. I forgive the book for this, but the women need saving. Clearly in the book, the women get saved.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And the men do all the work and have all of the big thoughts and the action.
Yeah, and I feel like part of it is, as you said, a product of the time. I mean, this is still an issue in 2026 with storytelling. Sure. With her specifically, I really felt like the hot pants thing was, like a lot of the other women, I felt like, okay, I'm getting what I feel seems like a very realistic insight into how someone ends up in sex work, right? Like one of the pimps that was killed, among the women that he was representing, two of them were his sister, right? And that is shocking, but it shows you, and when they talk about how they ended up doing this, it shows you this was a family that was on hard times, right? They're working together to do this, right?
And also they mentioned that it's a much better situation than they had previously in Mexico. Like, he rescued them from a much worse situation.
Right. And so all of this then for Anna to be, and again, I'm sure part of it is necessity, but for us to hear, it was almost written as if like the driving force for her being a sex worker was this hot pants, which just felt to me like everything else was so realistic about the sex work. And then that part just wasn't for me, because by all accounts in this, she's very, very attractive and smart and well-spoken. Like, it just doesn't, if she's likes to sleep with men, it seems like she wouldn't need to be a sex worker. Right. And also she says over and over again that none of the men she sleeps with in the job can make her, she's not, he says, cure the hot pants. I assume that means, getting off, for lack of a better phrase.
Satisfy her.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for classing that up for me.
That's what I'm here for.
Except Lanto, right? And what she really wants is to be with Lanto and be in a long-term relationship for that. And she's talking about getting married and having kids. It just seems to me like this was someone who was in this for, however it was that she got there. She wants what other people tend to want, which is like some more meaning in her life. Yeah, I don't know. The fact that it felt to me like either some sort of cheap gimmick thing to get people, she's like a sex maniac, or like something that a guy in prison might have told him of like, oh, well, this girl you see, she's got the hot pants. You know what I mean? I don't know. It was, yeah, I
That's
did.
a good point. Yeah.
For whatever reason, it was a funny phrase. I liked it in terms of just like a funny phrase, but I didn't love it in terms of the characterization.
Yeah, I agree with you. Out of all the characters we get POVs, hers was probably I hate to say the worst, but it was the least detailed and fleshed out. Also, the fact that she got the job because she walked into a bar and the bartender was like, "Hey, you want to be a hooker?"
Yes. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
There was no, the other ones, they fall into these situations through hard times. They're rough
Right.
situations. And for her, it's just like, she was just, hot enough that the bartender was like, hey.
I totally forgot that that's how it happened. Yeah. And she was the dream, right? Because she was like the $100 trick or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And I imagine even in the 60s, if you walked in and someone was like, "Hey, do you want to be a prostitute?" That that just doesn't feel realistic, especially given all that they talked about like how they had to be really careful about everything. Like it didn't ring true to me.
Also, what's she doing in the combat zone?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I have questions. I forgive the book for this. I think on a lot of points, great book.
Yeah.
To top this off too, I kept thinking about how all the women in this book, all their scenes take place just inside a bedroom. They never leave their apartments.
Very true. Yeah.
So all the men are, and that's part of just the structure of the book. And this is about sex workers. So structurally, it makes sense in the book, but it's also just like the men are running around and doing all the action, and the women are in their bedrooms thinking about things, and they go up and they have scenes in the bedroom, and then they go away. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what point I'm trying to make here.
If you can read something from other times and really appreciate like, oh, this is of this time, and that's an interesting thing on its own. But I know for some people just struggle with that for reasons that are maybe I should struggle more with it. I don't know.
I think we can appreciate this book for its merits.
Yeah.
While accepting that it's not flawless, especially by the standards of our time.
Yeah. So is Lanto ever going to feel like he fits in or what?
No.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was part of why I was rooting so hard for them to make it, is because I feel like he needs something else, right? He needs to have like a family and kids or something like that he can, well, not that that's the only thing that can give you meaning, for the record. I mean, like, obviously in a place like that, being the cop is going to make you ostracized. And especially since it didn't seem like he had a larger purpose, like it was pretty clear that he became a cop because if you're living there, the best way to not end up in prison was to be a cop. So that's the main reason he is one, which I thought was a great piece of characterization. And yeah, and it just seems like at work he's always going to be given this beat, and he's always going to be seen as like, oh, it's not necessarily because you're a great cop, it's because you're one of them. And yeah, that was a really interesting conflict that he had going on.
He's an interesting character, and I think unless he can get out of here and get out of this world that he's in, he's not going to change. I wish the best for him. I want him to have little Blondego kids.
Yeah.
His words, not mine.
Yeah.
But but I'm not that hopeful. I mean, as you well know, one of my favorite fantasy authors is Joe Abercrombie, and Joe Abercrombie writes a lot of these characters, and this sounds depressing, but it's about them trying to change and ultimately reverting back and failing and realizing that no, you can't really change who you are in a lot of ways, and the stories are often more about them accepting that.
I love.
Sounds really depressing when I put it like that.
One of my favorite, and I know some people who put the first Law series down at some point in like the third book because they were just like, this is too cynical for me. But that's I am with you in loving it, and I love so much that the second book is called Before They Are Hanged, and it is literally like, let's see them try and turn things around.
Yeah.
because it's going to come later. It's so good.
You can forgive your enemies, but not before they are hanged.
And that's right. So it's best epigraph.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, and it's 5 books, so we'll see. But yeah, I have a feeling that at the end of book 5, Lanto is going to be at the end of a rough crime, and then he's going to go out to lunch and see a new woman who used to be a sex worker and feel okay, and that'll be that.
Honestly, perfect ending.
Yeah, for some reason the
Yeah.
crime genre is like different than all the others. Like I will watch a crime show over and over again, even if we don't get any movement of the characters because it's all just like modular and stands alone. I feel the same way about mystery and crime novels. Like they're fun, they're a great time. I'll glean any other larger meaning that I can from them. But like, if we're just going to rinse and repeat over and over again, for whatever reason with this genre, it works for me, whereas it doesn't with other genres.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think if everything was okay at the end of this book, it would feel disingenuous. It would feel wrong. It would feel saccharine even.
Yeah.
It's just he's presenting you with this world with so many problems. And the end conclusion of the book is really, well, we solved one little problem, but the rest of the world grinds on. You were just little cogs in this machine. And there's just so many more things going on in this oppressive system of economies. We're all trapped in it.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
ultimately he's saving the system. He's saving the system that causes all this damage, but everybody needs it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if we think about it, if one of those pimps that were killed were going to end up in jail from him doing something, like the ultimate result, at least based on the story we've just read, is that a lot of those sex workers are going to, I mean, like, to me, that was the biggest effect of the fallout, was that when those pimps were murdered, those women were very afraid. And part of it was like, oh, what if he comes after us? But they also weren't necessarily expecting that. It was more like, what am I going to do now? Like, that was my protection. That was my setup for my job. That was how I was feeding myself. And so you can't even say that that's a silver lining, is that some of these guys who were doing this horrible stuff are now gone, because actually, even for the people they were doing those horrible things to, that's going to make their lives harder. It's really, I guess those are the layers. That's part of what makes this a great book, right?
It's fantastic. It sticks with you, as I hope listeners can tell. It really sticks with you. I had a little passage I wanted to read.
Do it, man.
If Cecil had known he was the 14th soldier to believe in Tilly, he might have come back to the city to kill whores. Tilly at 18 had a better system than Battalion Betty. Tilly was a whore with an angel's face and a virgin act that melted soldiers' hearts like piss through a snowbank. Only Cecil didn't know, so he continued to think occasionally of his first love and generally make an ass out of himself until he found his second love in the knife. And these unknown facts were not the only probe that the fickle finger of fate had given Cecil. Tilly, as well as being a smart young whore, had a monkey on her back as big as the world. She was a junkie. She shot her snow into her legs where not one of her 14-man task force could have noticed, having other things on their minds when they might have. And also on her back, besides the monkey, was her high-class pimp, who had thought up the whole operation, including the writing of 14 letters each week, which Tilly managed to wheedle pennies from heaven in the form of unspent combat pay her many lovers were getting. That section just like gets me.
Oh man.
I read the whole thing. I had to.
No, it's so good, man. Yeah, I mean, Tilly had these 14 soldiers corresponding with her from the war, feeling like she was their special lady back home, just cleaning up, man.
Yeah.
And it seemed like Cecil still didn't know, right? Like, as far as he knew, when he got back, this was his girlfriend who had been then turned into a sex worker by her pimp, and then killed herself, and then that's why he was, on this rampage to rid the world of the evil of the pimps.
Yeah, he never learned, as far as I can tell. That's one of those details, too, where I feel like that actually happened. That's something that he learned about in prison. It's too detailed, too specific.
No, totally. And you can totally imagine, depending on where some of these areas are located, near bases or near places where people came when they had their release, like, you could totally imagine some people are set up really nicely to pull something like this off. It was also just
smart.
really around that part like that what you just read is pretty eerie on its own. And then I think also just some of the descriptions of him being in the war and when he discovered that he really loved killing people, that was also
Yes.
some just like really chilling stuff.
Yeah. How people look at him differently.
Yeah, because
With the
they
space.
know, they can tell. It made me think. Did you ever watch Dexter?
I love Dexter. Yeah.
It made me think of Dokes, how Dokes just always knew that there
Yes.
was something off about Dexter. Yeah, there's just a lot in here. It's a short book, but there's a lot in here. We have
Yeah.
one more big question that I feel like
Okay.
we've kind of touched on, but just if we want to close with any thoughts, is just in what ways does this conform to or break stereotypes of the genre?
Okay. I think in a lot of ways that we talked about, it conforms to it. You have a story it's creative, but it's fairly straightforward. And the characters, you have the manly detective and who's seen too much shit, and it's very, very a lot of tropes. But it's also the 60s where I think a lot of these tropes were created. So it's hard to say, like, does it conform to the genre or did it create the genre?
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the context of the other novels of this period to say that. But yeah, I think in ways we talked about already, it breaks the genre in terms of the different perspectives and the humanizing of sex workers and other folks in this world. Very much, that's not a perspective you get in every crime novel.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I would agree that it conforms just very much just in like the overall structure. It really felt like it in sort of the culminating scene with the that he came in first and then the second guy in gets the shots off, and like that all felt like
Yeah.
a hard-boiled crime novel to a T. But yeah, I agree. The perspective shifting makes a big difference for me. I think what you've said has been really valuable for me because I hadn't thought of it as humanizing like Cecil, for example, but I think you're totally right because it's humanizing doesn't necessarily mean that I like them. It just
I mean,
means that they
imagine
are
it
even.
without that perspective,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that was really helpful you saying that. I think also even if the detectives are jaded or like the fact that Marlowe in those Chandler books, he walks around Los Angeles with all these people and he feels completely alone because he just sees all the shit underneath the gleam, but these detectives in these books all I feel like have some kind of moral code that is driving them. And whether that's ego and arrogance, or whether in some cases it's also mixed with just wanting to help the world or wanting to make the world a better place. And I do think so. The fact that we hear Lanto essentially say, the reason I became a cop is because I was less likely to end up in prison as a cop it's
Yes.
interesting. It really informs you a lot about the world of just like the fact that in some places kids are growing up and they think even if I do bad things, I'm probably never going to go to prison. And that in other places, people are thinking, man, like even if I'm doing all the right things, I got to make sure I'm stacking the odds in my favor kind of thing. And that's what's really guiding him rather than any moral code. So that was the main thing I thought that was really different, but I really liked it. I thought it added something to his character and to the story.
Yeah, that line stuck with me too. This is
Um,
definitely one of the places where you just kind of assume you're going to prison.
Yep, and you get the sense based on what we didn't see a whole lot of other professions going on there. I mean, one other character I feel like we need to shout out before we get off: Trash Can O'Toole.
Yeah, I love Trash Can O'Toole. Do you want to
Yeah.
read out a piece of his poetry?
Yeah, pox upon thee, little fellow, creeping pimp with stripe of yellow. With thy frightened, shifty glance and thy trembling in thy stance, mind the alley's dark open mouth, mind the shadows leaning close. Pay heed to soft, careful sounds, cautious footfalls on the ground. Watch and wait, and stink with fear, for in the dark your killer's near. It's called The Strip. Yeah. I liked the fact that he seemed to understand Lanto and feel like he wanted to kind of help him out, Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
we could go on and on, but yeah, I think we've hit on all the major spoiler stuff, and this is just solidified for me that I did really like this book, which I already knew coming into it, but like then when you talk about it, you realize like, oh yeah, no, there's a lot there.
Yeah. No, I have one question about Trash Can O'Toole. Did you recognize what he was basing his poetry off of?
No.
Like, was it familiar to? Okay, because I know he's supposed to be improvising it based on some, like, I don't know, Keats or one of those old poets. He mentioned someone, so I gotta look. Anyway,
Interesting.
yeah. I just thought that was such a great twist, because that means Johnson clearly has a background in this stuff too, and you can imagine him reading all this stuff in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? And that
Yeah.
oh, yeah. So, okay, sorry. One last question, really fast.
Yeah, sure.
Did you feel when you were reading this, like, even like, because this is the hot pants is the one place where I was like, nope, I'm not buying it. But every other place, if I was wondering about it, like I was like, he's pimping his sister. Okay, actually, they do want to be all. It all makes sense, but I'm just like, and then I was like, I mean, he knows. I just kept being like, no, this is an expert. He knows. Did you feel that way? Or no?
Oh yeah, no, totally. I was like, yeah, no, this guy's he's seen some shit. He's talked to people who've seen some shit. Like that's the really great thing with this book is you can trust the source.
Yeah. Okay,
it's not made up. Yeah.
To make sure it wasn't just me, because I felt I was like, why? Because he did stick ups, but I'm like, no. But like, if I was trying, I think I'm an okay writer. If I was trying to write any kind of crime scene, where am I getting that from? I'd only be getting it from books and television shows, right? But if you've actually been in it, you can go a lot deeper. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's what he got caught for. We don't know everything else he did. From what I understand, he just lived everywhere. And probably saw a lot of the dregs of society.
Yeah. Holy boy.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for taking the ride with us, and we will see you soon for a reminder, Isaac Asimov, the gods themselves, and can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah. This has been a good time, and see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.